Hey, it's time for a short update video. We're now in the stage where the last 10% of the car is taking, 60% of the work. The car's assembled, I'm driving it around. I have put everything together now, and it's basically just bug fixing and tuning from this point. So the front end's all on. I now have the bumper on. There's these cute little aluminum brackets I made because it's just a fiberglass bumper. Have the fans wired up. Carb tuning is in progress. I've got it pretty much dialed now. The only thing left is I have a bit of a stumble from a dead takeoff. I have a couple theories about that. So given that it is a really big cam, and I'm also at 5,500 feet of elevation here, I only get 6 or 7 inches of mercury at idle. And I've taken the distributor apart, and with a little vacuum gun, I checked the advance canister, and it starts working at 6 inches of mercury, and then it's full vacuum advance at, I think, 13. So that means at idle, even though I'm hooked up to manifold vacuum, I'm not getting any vacuum advance at idle. So what I had done, and what the car is set up for right now, is that I drilled and tapped a hole in the distributor mechanical advance, and I have a little Allen bolt in there. The head is ground into a cam profile, so I can turn the bolt and then put a lock nut on it to lock out the mechanical advance to different amounts. So what I'd found was that this engine wants basically as much initial timing as you can give it. I'm somewhere around 18, 19 degrees right now. Any more, and it's hard starting because the coil is taking a gulp at the same time as the starter's trying to overcome compression, which is something I learned fairly recently. So yeah, I have the advance limited, so I've got 18, 19 degrees of initial and then 35 total, and no vacuum advance at idle. So I think what I might need to do, and this is a theory put forward by a friend Ty, who spent a lot of time on his 409 tuning the timing, is to turn down the initial and check if that fixes the tip in from a dead stop with the vacuum advance unplugged. And if that works, I will turn down the initial, allow more mechanical advance to get the total of 35, and then play with the canister to see if I can get more of that idle timing back up with any amount of vacuum advance. There's kind of two things working against me for that dead stop start. Well, three things. One, it's a clutch car. Two, with the Muncie 4-speed, even though it's considered the wide ratio, it still has a 2.5 to 1 first gear, which is crazy by modern standards. And 373 rear end with the 31.5-inch tall tires, that's a pretty tall gear to get going in. And 3, with the big cam, it really doesn't make any torque in that 1,500 to 2,000 range where you want to take off in from a dead stop. Anyways, we'll play with it and see what I can figure out. What else is going on? The interior's all together, the gauges are wired up. I switched to a different shift lever that puts the shifter back and down a little bit. It's a lot more ergonomic. It's pretty nice. I put a brake controller in the car since I'm going to be pulling a trailer with a 7-pin with this later. And I've gone to a bigger tire in the rear. I now have a 265/70 R17, which is like an SUV tire. And it's about 31.5 inches in theoretical diameter. Real diameter is a little smaller. And that's about the biggest tire you can put on these cars. I actually had to get adjustable control arms, lower control arms, to push the tire back in the wheel well a little bit. And I noticed when I was doing that this car, and this was confirmed by a friend following me on the highway, this car crab walks a little bit because the rear axle is further forward on the driver's side. So I have about an inch of clearance there, but on the driver's side it's about 3/4 of an inch. And for that reason, now, after adjusting it on a hard corner, it rubs right there a little bit. So I think I'm going to move the axle a little forward on the passenger side to fix that. I had wired the taillights and the brake lights backwards. So the brake is supposed to be the bright one and the tail the dim one. And then I had to switch them around. There's no reference on the plug. It was just, I managed to pick the wrong way around. So that's fixed now. Pretty easy. We have the tow package installed. So believe it or not, U-Haul actually lists a custom application hitch for this, and they build them to order. It came with a AutoCAD drawing, I think from 1997, So they probably had to pull an old steel pattern out of a warehouse, dust it off, and make this, and they powder coated it one off, and it took about a month and a half to show up, which is not bad, honestly. Have the 7-pin connector here. I have drag bags in the car too. You can see the red bags under there. However, I'm not sure if they are actually working because I have some aftermarket rear springs in that came with the car. I don't know what they are. And I think they're a little higher diameter because the drag bags are actually supposed to pinch out on the springs, and they don't seem to do that. So I might have to get a factory replacement spring and put a factory replacement spring back in. I'll consider that. And the way I have this wired up here is the 7-pin actually plugs into the 4-pin so that I can have both on the car in it. When I'm not using the 4-pin, I can keep it tucked up like that. Pretty convenient. The hitch is rated for 4,000 pounds with 400 pounds of tongue weight. In here, thanks Vlad for making these. I got this aluminum diamond tread plate. He cut it out for me to make the smuggler's hatch cover. And then you can see I used the bead roller to match the factory bed profile. And then we have another piece the same for the tailgate cover. And that's just to save a few pounds, and because the smuggler's hatch panel I had cut up when I was putting the roll bar in, and it was going to be a pain to repair it. Might as well put a lighter one in. Apart from that, there's not a whole lot going on with the car. I took it to Cars and Coffee this morning, and when I filled the tank, it started leaking a bunch of fuel out, which it didn't the other time I filled it. So I think because of the taller tires in the rear, there's enough rake now that it was just pissing out the vent tube, and I didn't have the vent tube hooked up to anything. So I just ran a line up from that to the top of the filler, refilled the tank, and it doesn't leak anymore. So that's all good. With the taller tires, it now runs 70 miles an hour at 3,000 RPM in 4th gear, which is pretty tolerable. Before it was 60 miles an hour with the 275 50 17s. So this will be much nicer for road tripping. And then there's a compromised tire I can put on later, a 275 60 17 is the tallest and a performance tread tire you can get, so I'll switch to that later. Yeah, carb tuning's good. Cruise is good. Wide open, pretty happy with it. I've run the car up to 6,200 RPM in 3rd gear, which is about 100 miles an hour. And the tune's pretty happy, and it still feels like it's making power, like it's not quite at the power peak at that. But I have no reason to run at higher rate now. I'm still technically in the 500-mile break-in period. There's a few other really mild things to work out, mostly wiring related. I had wired up the electric fans the same way I did on my pickup, so they're just straight to the battery. The theory being that after you shut the car off, the fans run for a while, cool off the radiator so you don't get hot restarts. However, because the sensor in this one is in the intake manifold, the fans just kind of run forever. So I'm going to have to switch that to run off of keyed power. As well, the fuel gauge is not working. It's pinned at completely full. So I think I might just have 2 of the leads switched. I can figure that out because I did test that the sender worked when I put it in. And the headlight switch is pretty iffy. You go over bumps and they kind of flicker. So I have a new switch to go in, and that ought to fix it because I think it is the switch, because just rattling the switch makes the flicker happen. I do need to check the alignment too, because I never realigned it after all the weight reduction, and since the nose has come up a bit, it might be a little towed in. Because I noticed if I go over 100 miles an hour, it starts to get a little squirrely. That might also be lack of caster too, but I don't have much caster adjustment in these control arms, if any, without adding more camber, and the car already has a substantial amount of front camber, but I'll see what I can do with that. Apart from that, I'm really just driving it around, dialing the carburetor in and finding other bugs with the setup, but it's all going pretty well. So tune in for more of that. I might have some driving clips in the next video, and thanks for watching.